Sound check number 1, presenter's laptop. Sound check number 2, clerk's laptop.
Okay. I want to indicate that the meeting now is live. So I would like to call the meeting to order. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. Other individuals and the media may also be audible and or visually recording this meeting. All electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during committee meeting. I will begin to roll call. Please indicate your presence when I call your name. Councillor Clark. I don't think he's here. Councillor Jackson.
Here.
Councillor Merula.
Present, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Nan, Vice Chair.
Present. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And Councillor Whitehead. And I don't see him. Okay. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Apologies for the delay. Yes, Madam Chair, there are changes to the agenda. We have 10 new communications items, all respecting the temporary emergency shelter, and that is item 5.1. The letters are 5.1A through J, and the recommendation is that they be received. We have one new delegation request, item 6.1 from Brian Hayes, respecting renoviction and tenant harassment in Hamilton. That is for a future meeting. And we have one new discussion item, item 10.2, the Wesley Day Center, report HSC 20044 citywide.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. May I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as amended? Councillor Samarula and Councillor Jackson. Is there any discussion on the agenda as amended? I see none. We will require electronic vote. Please indicate your vote now as it comes up. And that was quickly. Thank you, Clerk. Okay, the motion is carried. Okay, declaration of interest. Is there any, those who have any noted conflict, please ensure that when it is time to vote on the matter, that you vote abstain and your conflict will be noted correctly in the committee minutes. See none, let's move on. Approval of the minutes of previous meeting. May I please have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes of the September 10th, 2020. Councillor Merula and Councillor Nan. Is there any discussion on the approval of the minutes? I see none, so we will electronically vote. Please indicate your vote now. And it comes now. Thank you. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to communication item 5. May I have please a mover and a seconder to receive the corresponding item 5.1A through J. Councillor Nan and Councillor Samarula. Is there any discussion on any communication items? Okay, I see Councillor Nan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Pauls. Just a quick question through you to staff. So my office has been working to set up this meeting as previously discussed. I don't remember if it was at GIC or previous ECS committee meeting or if it was council, as this group of residents have been submitting all their correspondences to every committee as they have every right to do so. So we've been trying to set up this meeting with a group of residents who are still presenting their opposition to the temporary shelter that's going forward at the former Cathedral Boys School. I'm looking forward to being able to communicate with them directly, one-on-one or in a group setting. However, I just wanted clarity from staff, if I could, through you, about recommendations of meeting with groups of people. And this resident group would be a group of 10. Their request is for a physical meeting. My office has made it really clear that we want to adhere to all public health protocols moving forward. I also am dealing with a household with immunocompromised individuals. So I've been moving all of my meetings since COVID-19 has taken place have been virtual by phone or in this type of format with video. So through you two staff, recommendations for meetings with public.
Okay, we'll address it to, is Paul Johnson here or? I don't. Edward John, is he here? Or Grace Mater? She's here.
Good
morning.
afternoon, councillors.
Good afternoon.
Through the chair, I'm going to ask, Paul's hasn't been able to log on as of yet, so I'm going to ask Edward to take that.
Thank you, Grace. And this is Edward John, Director of Housing Services, for the benefit of the watching public. We have been in discussions about that meeting, and certainly the preference is to remain virtual. We do know that this will apply to a larger group than just 10, and it's going to be difficult from our perspective to control those numbers from a protection of not just staff, but also those additional community members who may wish to attend that meeting and for that information to be ultimately given to a wider audience.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we will require electronic vote. Please indicate your vote now. Okay, we'll move on. Delegation request. 6.1, Brian Hayes, respecting renovictions and tenant harassment in Hamilton. May I please have a mover and a second to approve the delegation?
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
think that delegation, since I am my wife and I own rental properties and it's related to tenants, I believe I
Yes.
should declare an interest to prevent a conflict, which
Okay.
I just realized now. So I'll fill out the forms accordingly. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for noticing that.
Just to note, it does not say in the information there, but I believe that this delegate is referring to City Housing Hamilton properties.
Oh, I see. Okay, so I don't have an interest. Thank you very
I
much for
don't
that
believe so.
clarification. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And all right. So can I have a mover and a second to approve the delegation 5.1 in future meeting? Okay, Councillor Nan and Councillor Jackson. Okay, is there any discussion on the delegation request? I see none, so we're going to move on and vote. E-vote, please. Like to do show of hands or? Okay. Oh, there it is. Oh, no problem. Thank you. Okay. All right. And it passes. Okay, discussion item 10.1, flu immunization program citywide. May I please have a mover and a seconder to put the report on the floor? Councillor Jackson and Councillor Nan. Is there any discussion on the item? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair Pauls. This is really a wonderful program from Chief Michael Sanderson of our EMS paramedics for a flu immunization program, which has been underway, it looks like, for a couple of years anyways, primarily, if I read the report right, Madam Chair, in our City Housing Hamilton complexes. And he wants to, the recommendation is for another 60 days, commencing October 15th, taking it, I guess, just before Christmas, in cooperation with City Housing Hamilton under the guidance of Hamilton Public Health, to provide the normal influenza shots for our city housing tenants. This is a really fantastic, worthy program. And if the chief is there, Madam Chair, I think he should elaborate on what has been done in the past. And this sounds like almost like a mobile pharmacy on wheels with a couple of dedicated paramedics. I would love for the chief to tell the public exactly what this program is and how it came about through you, please.
Chief Saunderson, I would love to hear about it.
Thank you
We
very
all
much,
will.
Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And it's Mike Sanderson, Chief of Hamilton Paramedic
Yes.
Service for the listening and watching public. And thank you, through you, Madam Chair, thank you, Councillor Jackson, for asking the questions and the support. Over the last 2 years, we've provided various flu immunization programs with very good results and very good client feedback. Our primary approach, as already mentioned, was on the congregate settings, in particular in the 9 City Housing Hamilton buildings that our CP programs or community paramedic programs have been functioning in. They have seniors, they have residents that are at risk, and it's a way of making sure that we reach out and they have the access to the required flu shots. We've had great support over the last few years in running these clinics from the base hospitals, from public health, from city housing, the involved unions, both CUPE and OPSU, and of course from our frontline staff, we're the ones that make this work. They're very diligent, and when we watch our community paramedic staff and their actions with the seniors, they do a great job. The client feedback, as I've mentioned, has been excellent in the process, and we've actually reported on that in our annual report. We've been very fortunate over the last 2 years to have H&HB Lynn do the funding to cover the staffing costs. And we're, of course, continuing to discuss with them the potential to again be funded for this. The risk of a simultaneous COVID and flu season is even more important now to get as many people immunized for the flu as early as possible. So our goal is really to step up our game in this. We're looking at running a series of mobile flu shot clinics for a period of 60 days, and we're targeting at least 40 patients per day. It's about bringing the flu shots. It's about bringing the flu shots out to the public into the areas where they need it, where they can't access regular things. It's not about replacing any existing packages or programs, and certainly we're very aware of that activity. So the direction that I'm seeking in this is to provide the mobile flu immunization clinics and to continue in our efforts to secure the third-party funding for the staffing. We are already in discussion on that. And we recognize there's a risk in not being able to secure the requested $40,000 funding. I think it's a relatively low risk, but it's a risk we should take. I believe it's important to move forward in our preparation. We need that kind of authorization and direction on it now to be able to meet the October 15th guideline or implementation date. So that's the reason for bringing this report forward at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Chief Sanderson. Applause all around from my end of things. Chief, so my quick arithmetic would say 40 a day, 7 times 280 a week. That's about 1,100 a month, and you want a 60-day program. You're hoping to reach 2,200 of our tenants. Sounds like a large portion of them are seniors with the flu shot. Madam Chair, through you, would my arithmetic be fairly accurate, Chief?
Through you, Madam Chair, the arithmetic's a little bit off. We're looking at about 2,400, but you're very close, Councillor, and you're quick.
Okay.
It is not just all about seniors. It's also about people who are at risk. We're looking at not just doing it within the 9 seniors building. With a mobile clinic, we'll be able to do some better outreach in the process and hopefully to reach people that just aren't able to get into a regular flu shot area or able into the normal process.
Okay, Chief. And Madam Chair, just a couple of quick question follow-ups. I appreciate your indulgence. The $40,400, if General Manager Paul Johnson is there, please, for goodness sakes, The 44 million we've already received from Premier Ford for COVID-related costs this year, hoping to get the $60 million balance so that our taxpayers would not be in deficit this year, Madam Chair, due to COVID. I would hope we could pluck $40,400 from the 44 million to cover the costs for what these two paramedics are doing. Last question, Chief. With the two assigned paramedics, are you worried at all about having two less paramedics on the road looking after the everyday emergencies? That's my last question, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. No, we're not concerned about that. We have adequate staffing for our paramedics. We've had a relatively low number of paramedics, knock on wood, who've been in COVID self-isolation. I currently have 6, all as a result of interactions outside of the workplace. So we're able to staff our vehicles on a regular, consistent basis. We will be backfilling the 2 paramedics with part-time staff or with full-time staff in the process. It will not affect our staffing in terms of daily normal responses.
Commendations and congratulations, Chief. It has my full support. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor, was it Councillor Nan?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry. Also, just a fantastic initiative, definitely in a COVID context, in terms of helping meet the health equity needs in our community and ensuring people don't have to go far in order to access the influenza immunization. So thank you to staff for bringing this forward. I'm happy to support it.
Yeah, I would like to ask, can you take the chair, Councillor Nan?
Yeah, problem. The floor is yours.
Chief, how long has this program been in process? A couple of years, did you say?
Through the chair, we've been doing it for the last 2 years. I believe it was Councillor Jackson asked us to initiate this about 2 years ago with requests from his constituencies. The LIN has been funding the process, and we've been able to do it consistently for the last 2 years. This will be our 3rd year in operation with it.
Oh, that's wonderful. And in your opinion, if we didn't have this, would how many would not be able to have the flu shot? In your opinion, what the percentage of people that would not get the flu shot? Do you?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's very difficult to end up categorizing how many would not be able to get the flu shot. I think it's more about how many people are able to get the flu shot in a convenient and effective way.
Yes.
Sometimes people would not be getting the flu shot because it's inconvenient to get there in the process.
Right.
So people want to do the right thing. They want to end up preventing the spread. But at the end of the process, it's really not about 60% or 70% can't get it. It's about how do we help them to get it easily and effectively.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Thank you. Great program. Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other speakers, and we will need any other speakers? Oh, Councillor Marula.
Just quickly, Madam Chair, I just want to take the opportunity because as we were talking about how great of a program this was, it was remiss of us not to thank Councillor Jackson for having initiated this. He's like a stealth fighter. He comes in and quietly does these things without sometimes getting credit. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank him for his efforts.
Yes, and we all thank you, Councillor Jackson. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up, Councillor Marula. Okay, we're going to have an e-vote on to receive and to approve. And it passes. Okay, we're moving on. Point 2, Wesley Day Center. May I please have a mover and a seconder to put the report on the floor? Councillor Nan and Councillor Marula. I would like to call upon Edward John to introduce the report. Edward, please turn on your microphone and the camera. I see you there.
Thank you, Chair. And once again, this is Edward John, Director of Housing Services. As detailed in the rather brief report, obviously we were made recently aware that the lease arrangement for Wesley Day Center has come to an end. It will be ending the beginning of November. Previously, we had committed funds to ensure that those experiencing homelessness and sleeping rough were able to access the services that they provide in an enhanced model. So open longer hours and on 7 days a week in order to ensure that gap that was experienced for those experiencing homelessness was achieved, understanding that the pandemic had closed a number of those options going forward. And certainly while we face a second wave, we believe the continuation of that service is vital. So we are asking, obviously, the extent to which we can continue to support the Wesley Day Center in a new location, yet to be determined, with a similar set of resources and supports available, as well as we go forward with this, to ensure that we do communicate with the public in a robust fashion, understanding that this will be, in terms of the new location, a fairly interested piece of information for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any discussion on the item? Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And Director John, we just got this report, and I understand the timeliness of it, and you put it together as quickly as you could. So I was just quickly reading through in the last half hour before the meeting started today. So Director John, just refresh my memory now. If I go back to, I think it was June or July of last year, the gallery in the chambers was 3/4 full. A lot of people concerned about this program that was going to be discontinued at 195 Ferguson North. And I remember there was seemed to be a lot of blame going around. Unfortunately, some of it was falling at City Council's feet. But if I remember, it was some convoluted arrangement, multi-party arrangement, Madam Chair, between Wesley Centers, Wesley Urban, the operator, Wesley something else that was the landlord, and one didn't want it anymore. The other said enough is enough. We have other things we want to do at 195. Is my memory fairly accurate? Is this what this is all about? And what is it that today you are recommending? Is it going to continue there, or are you hoping to have the support today that the funding will continue with Wesley, but somewhere else? Just refresh my memory, please, Edward, through you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely, and through the chair to the councillor. Yeah, this has had a long and varied history, and much of your recollection is correct. So almost a year ago, we had a number of delegations speaking about the importance of this service. At the time, we were not funding this as a support service. This was not funded by the city, and they were experiencing both issues from a funding perspective, but also because of the lease arrangement with Wesley Community Homes, who no longer were interested in continuing that lease arrangement. During those discussions, obviously, Healthy and Safe Communities were also looking at a CTS, so a combined injection center for homeless individuals and those with addiction issues, and we were looking at the ability to combine those in a kind of a solution that would allow some cost efficiencies to go forward. So there was a process still before COVID. I know it seems a very long time ago, but pre-COVID, for that review for a location, and those reviews continue. Now, fast forward into COVID, and we have been meeting regularly with many of our service providers and drop-in centers, and they kind of took on a very new role through COVID because of the limited access to a number of mainly hygiene services that were previously available and open pre-COVID. So through that process, and in June of this year, we actually brought a subsequent report that spoke to continuing the funding for these types of centers to be open longer hours and more days to fill in that gap in the service. So that's where we were in June. We now are where we are today, where we now understand that the lease arrangement for that particular drop-in center is no more. So we wanted to bring this back, for your information and edification in terms of that process, but we are now looking for a new location, and with that comes obviously an awareness from the community about those impacts. So we do want to then add that subsequent recommendation that speaks to the community engagement on that piece. So we are still only suggesting committing funding till June of next year, which was the original recommendation approved in June of this year. In terms of extending those hours and operations, what we've hit is a little bit of a barrier because they are no longer having a location, which was similar to their concerns a while back. So we're going to support them where we can in going forward and finding a new location, but also providing that engagement with the community as we do so.
So Director John, really thank you for that elaboration and enlightenment. I guess the safe injection site component is still the most, I'll call it, controversial of the service provided. Madam Chair, through you to Edward.
Through the chair to the councillor, in terms of the service provided, yes, that there is still a lot of concerns around that piece. That is somewhat decoupled from this process. So at this point, they're still not offering outside of the general open surgery and health clinics that are in operation today. That doesn't exist within Wesley Urban Ministries 195 location, and in their new temporary location going forward would not be provided in that location either.
Okay, well, for wherever that ends up landing up, I'll speak for myself on behalf of Nervous Neighborhoods. That's an encouraging thing. Lastly, Madam Chair, the B part of your recommendation, you've kept it generic. You say in conjunction with the ward councillor. I know 195 Ferguson has been in Councillor Farr's ward. Is it still with that ward councillor, or have you kept it generic for a reason? Through you, Madam Chair, and that's my last question.
So through the chair to the council, so it's generic purely because we do not know the new location. We are still in communications with Wesley Urban Ministries about finding that location. So, you know, understanding that this is more likely going to be a lower city issue given the infrastructure, available services, and a number of those geographical requirements for this type of service. So that's why we have not designated a particular ward councillor, but will do so once that location has been chosen.
Okay, I'm supportive of this direction, and again, seems like it buys us some more time for the next 9-10 months till June of next year. Thank you, Madam Chair. Pauls.
Thank you. And we have, no? Okay. All right, thank you. We're going to require a e-vote to receive the report. Please indicate the vote now. And it's carried. We're going to move now. 11.1. Modular housing, moved by Councillor Marula, second by Councillor Pauls, to put the motion on the floor. Councillor Marula, please introduce your motion respecting modular housing. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Now we can, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to remind everyone, this is a motion that was drafted by Councillor Collins, who's on the line and will speak to it after I read it, and it is moved by myself and seconded by yourself, Councillor Pauls, or Madam Chair.
Yes.
Therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to prepare a report business plan for the development of 2 modular housing pilot projects, and B, that the report include a financing strategy that leverages provincial and federal resources for the capital and operating costs associated with a supportive housing service delivery model, and C, that in consultation with planning, housing services, real estate, and other stakeholders, the report include a list of private and or publicly owned sites for consideration, and D, that the report include an expedited approval and construction process to facilitate the rapid development of the projects within a 12-month timeframe, and E, that staff be directed to develop an application process whereby local housing providers can apply to design, develop, and operate the projects in partnership with the city and other levels of government, and F, that the report be presented to the Emergency and Community Services Committee for its consideration. And if I could just defer to Councillor Collins for his comments, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, Councillor Collins.
Thanks,
I wish
Madam
we
Chairman.
could see you, but you're on the line. Okay.
I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Well, I want to thank Councillor Marula and you for seconding the motion and bringing it to committee. Last year, as you know, I started the term and I reached out to a number of you advising that, you know, one of my goals for the term was to construct a women's shelter. It's one of those areas in housing where we've seen publicly and privately requests for additional services. And you approved at GIC the creation of a subcommittee that looked at women shelter, transgendered and non-binary community shelter subcommittee to get at that very issue. And as we discussed that those services last year very briefly. The committee's only met, I think, once or twice now, chaired by Councillor Nan. I had the opportunity to visit and attend the ONFA conference, the Ontario Not-for-Profit Housing Association conference in Toronto last year, where this subject matter was introduced, modular housing. And modular housing are units that are constructed off of site in traditionally in a factory, in a warehouse, and then they are transported to a site and put together. I don't want to say Lego, but maybe that's the best way I can explain it. They're attached to each other, and the buildings can be quite small, medium size, or even large. And so when I was introduced to it at the conference, I started to do some research. And Vancouver, if you have the opportunity, I did send you, many of you at the time during the winter months, clips from YouTube that highlights what Vancouver's done with modular housing. It's essentially all they're building right now. And of course, since that time, Toronto has adopted a modular housing program over the last couple of months. And so the benefits are many. You can build these units off-site. They're transported to the location. They are at a much lower cost than the traditional unit cost for a bricks and mortar development. In fact, at City Housing next week, we are going to receive a report that shows that the average cost of a traditional affordable housing unit has gone from $260,000 a year to $475,000 a unit. So it's the construction costs are off the charts right now. It's much more expensive to build a traditional style bricks and mortar unit. And modular housing provides an opportunity for housing providers to stretch their dollars further and build more units for less. The time that it takes is it's quicker to construct these units off-site and then relocate them to a site where where the timelines are substantially reduced. And so there's those benefits there as well. And I think, you know, what we've witnessed through the pandemic, and we were already in a crisis situation before the pandemic, we really need to find new and innovative ways to build our units quicker and at a lower cost. And, you know, I think the timing is opportune in that the provincial government, the federal government recently announced that they had the Wrapping Housing Initiative, where they were going to provide $1 billion for housing providers across the country. And that will be to get units online in a very quick way. And so I think this initiative gels quite nicely with that. As the motion indicates, we can't do this, we can't continue to do this on our own. For the last number of years, Hamilton, whether it's at CHH or with other housing providers, we have basically funded the bill for affordable housing improvements, whether it's new units or repair and reconstruction. And we just can't continue to do that. We're still waiting for what's rightfully ours from the National Housing Strategy funds that they created from CMHC. And so we're waiting for those funds, and I hope they're coming soon. We're waiting, we continue to wait. But I think this initiative here is another opportunity for us to go to the feds and the province and with stakeholders locally, as it indicates, and to find ways and means in which to leverage our partnerships and provide additional affordable housing opportunities. And just right now, just to let you know, we're at 6,200, just over 6,200 on the wait list. Wow. And the biggest need on the wait list is for singles and couples. And so these modular units, although they are quite small, they are working in other communities, and they would fit that demographic quite nicely. And so I'm open to any questions. I did float this motion by staff before I presented it to committee, and I'm just hoping that if it's approved, that we'll be able to, at some point in time, be able to say publicly that we've secured resources from the province and or feds through whatever programs. Just to be clear, when Toronto presented this earlier this year in June, within a couple of weeks, they had already received approval from the province, not just for funding, but the province attached ministerial orders for zoning, which essentially for the sites that they had selected, gave them the zoning approval that they needed to start with the planning, design, and obviously the construction. And their two projects will be completed by next spring. That's how fast these things are occurring in other communities, and that's how fast they're happening here in Ontario. So I'm hoping to, it was several weeks since I've read the report, but I don't think a lot has changed as it relates to Toronto's situation. They're making great progress. They have plans to build 100 of these per year for the next 10 years. And I think Hamilton should be in line to do something something along those same lines as it relates to modular builds. Doesn't say that we're not progressing with our traditional bricks and mortar. We'll continue to work on those projects that we have on the horizon. But I think this is just another opportunity for us to serve another part of our constituency in a quicker way, in a cheaper way, and again, with the assistance of both levels of government and local housing providers. Thanks, Madam Chairman.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Councillor. It's so nice that you took the time and your involvement and learning more about it, going to conference. This is an issue that really needs to be addressed. And I personally want to thank you for taking the time and learning about it so that you could share it with us. So thank you. I have Councillor Nan. She would like to ask a couple of questions. Councillor Nan.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you also to Councillor Collins for bringing this motion forward. He did indicate very clearly early on about modular housing as being a potential solution to help us as a council achieve the housing targets that we need to in order to address the population outcome situation that we're facing in terms of housing and homelessness and affordability. Just a quick question through you to staff. Was that ministerial zoning change that the City of Toronto was able to get approval from the province in order to enable their modular housing plan? So from through you to staff, could I get a little bit more clarity about that ministerial zoning change and whether that is applicable Ontario-wide, or was that specific to Toronto, given Toronto has its own municipal act and different zoning requirements?
Edward?
Thank you, through the chair. And once again, this is Edward John, Director of Housing Services. So yeah, we did follow up with Toronto, and certainly a ministerial zoning order is just that. So it's a zoning order that comes straight from the ministry, which removes the typical process one does go through for a zoning amendment application. So it expedites that piece of the land use planning aspect so they can go straight to a building permit stage and approach. So it condenses certainly the typical timelines that is applicable to new development. You know, that is one option for Hamilton. I would suggest, though, that we do have, particularly in our downtown, flexible zoning. Typically, zoning is not necessarily the hindrance. I mean, when it does become a barrier, it does add that additional time, but there are opportunities within the downtown because of the flexible approach to zoning that has been taken. That being said, we are going through that process of identifying a number of sites and continually increasing that list of potential sites for a number of purposes, but all of them geared towards achieving some kind of innovative approach to affordable housing. And as Councillor Collins mentioned, you know, we are trying to be intentional. So modular housing may be a very good approach when it comes to the smaller units for the singles and the couples, which does form a large part of our wait list. You know, we also have other approaches that are occurring throughout the city when it comes to larger households and the like. So it is something we can explore and something we can make request for. I think at this point we are making sure that that list that we do have represents the opportunities that are most appropriate for affordable housing proposals, and then doing that assessment to see whether zoning is an issue or whether it's typical a capital and operating funding piece that needs to be done.
Certainly, and thank you for the response. And I was among many, I think, waiting with bated breath to hear the province or the federal announcement this week with the $1 billion to be stretched, as Councillor Collins mentioned, across the entire country. Many of us were hoping that that pot might be bigger, given the needs that have been emerging steadily through the pandemic in terms of the need for quick build, affordable housing solutions that are also dignified. So it's great that this motion will help our municipality to leverage a built form that enables us to get that housing in place sooner than later, and hopefully lead us to achieving our targets that we've set within this term of council to deliver. So thank you so much again to the mover of the motion, also Councillor Collins, for bringing it to this table.
Thank you. I see no other speakers, so we will we will require your electronic vote. Please indicate your vote now. Yes. Yeah, it's just that I'm on the motion. Just hold on. Yep. Still was on the motion. Okay, and it's carried. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. General information and other business. Is there any items of the general information or other business? Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. One of the many things I've come to resent and loathe about this worldwide pandemic, putting the health of our community and our citizens absolutely paramount at the top. But after that, one of the other things I've come to loathe and resent about this pandemic has been the cancellation of so many great events in our community, where hundreds, if not thousands, were able to attend and celebrate achievements, accomplishments, volunteerism, etc. One of them, of course, was the Seniors Awards, where we typically get 600-700 in June at Michelangelo's, honoring about 36 of our most dedicated volunteer citizens who put out so much for others who are shut-ins. So we've all made adaptations to this pandemic. We've all made adjustments. And I thought we were on the verge, possibly, Madam Chair, of some type of Seniors Awards that may be kicking off soon. And given your committee today, if memory serves me right, I think we're on the verge of something this fall. So through you to General Manager Paul Johnson. Paul, maybe you could give us an update. Is there any aspect of the Seniors Award that still is going to be unfolding this fall? And how can seniors get involved? How can the community support it? Through you, Madam Chair, please.
Well, thanks very much. And through you, through the chair, we are, I'm not going to have my video on. Unfortunately, I'm a bit mobile at the moment, and I think I'll drop off if I turn my video on, but you'll hear my voice, hopefully. And I'm really, I apologize for being a bit late to join the meeting, but I'm really glad to have a chance to address what Councillor Jackson just kicked off, because we too were very sad. And the Senior of the Year Award program, that whole evening is just this wonderful celebration of older adults. And what's even worse is this is the 25th anniversary of the award. So, you know, of all the years, right? But, you know, we've been recognizing the contributions of seniors age 65 and older for 25 years this year. It started with the Senior of the Year Award. We've added a number of categories over the years. We've been able to celebrate the incredible contributions that are made by our seniors in this community. And I joke every year, so I'll use the same joke with you today when I speak at the dinner, is that with all those people in the room, the entire city, I'm sure, shuts down, because all those volunteer powers are at the table having dinner and celebrating. There can't be any work happening in this community on that evening.
True.
I want to let you know that starting tomorrow, you're going to see some of the ways that we are recognizing our award winners. They have been delivered their awards. So, and that's starting tomorrow and through the weekend, you're going to hear some wonderful stories about those award winners. And really, we're working up to October 1st, which is the International Day of Older Persons. And we're also going to be raising a flag at that time and really trying to do our part in this virtual way that we have to work today to celebrate our older adults. The awards still continue. I know it's not the same, and for the award winners, it's not quite the celebration they would want with their family and friends and colleagues, and for you, not the chance to obviously be part of it. But I do want to let you know, and I really want to thank Lisa Maychek, of course, who you know is spearheads this every year, Jessica Chase, who is her manager, for all of their work in thinking through how can we do this differently. And Antonella Giancarlo, who today gave me a few notes, because I thought, given the fact we're going to start to see some things growing out tomorrow, and you'll be engaged as well, we'll be sending you some information as counselors, particularly for those award winners who are in your award, I just thought today to take a few minutes. I really appreciate the time, because it's a great event. We circle on our calendar every year, and I'm glad we've been able to find some way to recognize the fantastic contribution of our volunteers 65 years of age and over.
General Manager Johnson, thank you. Thank you for that, and to your staff, primarily Coordinator Lisa Maychuk, for the outstanding work and keeping some semblance of the Senior Citizen of the Year Awards in play during this time of COVID. Paul, can I leave this thought with you? With next Wednesday being City Council, September 30th, And you said about October 1st, kickoff for the month of October of recognizing older adults' contributions across society and our communities. If there is a list, which would then become known of the award winners, that possibly that could be given to Mayor Eisenberger to read out for next Wednesday's City Council meeting. I'll leave the thought with you. Thank you, Madam Chair Pauls.
Yes. And I agree with you, Councillor, that the saddest thing about COVID is all the events have been canceled, all the nonprofit that depend on these events. It's really hard to take, but I'm glad we're able to do something. So I thank Paul Johnson for this, and so thank you. We're going to, guess what, adjourn. It's been a short meeting, but it's been a pleasure to see your faces. So thank you. And can I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn? Councilor Marula, Councilor Nan, and you guys have a nice weekend. Oh, we have to vote. I'm sure this is a good vote. I guess, we have to make it official. Thank you, Paul. There we go. Everybody have a great weekend. See ya. Bye.